Hey everyone, for today's video, I'm going to be reading Daniel chapter 4, and if you haven't saw my last video, I read Daniel chapter 3. For today's chapter, I'm not going to start right at the beginning. I'm going to start at verse 19 and read to verse 37, because it's just really long, and verses 1 all the way to 18, it talks about Nebuchadnezzar's dream of a tree. I'm gonna be using the NIV version if you want to follow along, and after I'm done we will talk about it. And okay, Daniel chapter 4 verse 19 starts off with saying, "Then Daniel, also called Belteshazzar, was greatly perplexed for a time, and his thoughts terrified him. So the king said, 'Belteshazzar, do not let the dream or its meaning alarm you.' Belteshazzar answered, 'My lord, if only the dream applied to your enemies and its meanings to your adversaries. The tree you saw, which grew large and strong, with its tops touching the sky, visible to the whole earth, with beautiful leaves and abundant fruit, providing food for all, giving shelter to the wild animals, and having nesting places in its branches for the birds. Your Majesty, you are that tree. You have become great and strong. Your greatness has grown until it reaches the sky, and your dominion extends to distant parts of the earth. Your Majesty saw a Holy One, a messenger, coming down from heaven and saying, 'Cut down the tree and destroy it, but leave the stump bound with iron and bronze in the grass of the field while its roots remain in the ground. Let him be drenched with the dew of heaven. Let him live with the wild animals until 7 times pass by for him.' This is the interpretation, Your Majesty, and this is the decree the Most High has issued against my lord the king." It talks about, that's basically saying this is the dream God has given him, and talking about Nebuchadnezzar. Verse 25, "You will be driven away from people and will live with the wild animals. You will eat grass like the ox and be drenched with the dew of heaven. 7 times will pass by for you until you acknowledge that the Most High," talking about God, "is sovereign over all the domes on earth and gives them to anyone he wishes. The command to leave the stump of the tree with its roots means that your kingdom will be restored to you when you acknowledge that heaven rules. Therefore, Your Majesty, be pleased to accept my advice. Renounce your sins by doing what is right, and your wickedness by being kind to the oppressed. It may be that then your prosperity will continue." All this happened to King Nebuchadnezzar 12 months later. As the king was walking on the roof of the royal palace of Babylon, he said, "Is not this the great Babylon I have built as the royal residence by my mighty power and for the glory of my majesty?" Even as the words were on his lips, a voice came from heaven, "This is what is decreed for you, King Nebuchadnezzar. Your royal authority has been taken from you. You will be driven away from people and will live with the wild animals. You will eat grass like the ox. 7 times will pass by for you until you acknowledge that the Most High," talking about God, "is sovereign over all kingdoms on earth and gives them to anyone he wishes." Immediately, what had been said about Nebuchadnezzar was fulfilled. He was driven away from people and ate grass like the ox. His body was drenched with the dew of heaven until his hair grew like the feathers of an eagle and his nails like the claws of a bird. At the end of that time, I, Nebuchadnezzar, raised my eyes towards heaven, and my sanity was restored. Then I praised the Most High. I honored and glorified him who lives forever. His dominion is an eternal dominion. His kingdom endures from generation to generation. All the peoples of the earth are regarded as nothing. He does as he pleases with the powers of heaven and the peoples of the earth. No one can hold back his hand or say to him, "What have you done?" At the same time that my sanity was restored, my honor and splendor were returned to me for the glory of my kingdom. My advisors and nobles sought me out, and I was restored to my throne and became even greater than before. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and exalt and glorify the King of heaven, because everything he does is right, and all his ways are just, and those who walk in pride he is able to humble. Whew. Okay. So obviously it's talking about how God was putting Nebuchadnezzar's pride aside, because in chapter 3, Nebuchadnezzar was making everyone in the palace and everything, all that stuff. He was making all of them get down on their knees and worship a piece of gold and him at the same time. And so later on in chapter 4, God is like, "You're not going to do that. You are going to put your pride aside, and everyone is going to worship me." And he was a very prideful man. He thought he could rule over everyone, and just everyone would just listen to him, but obviously not, right? So Proverbs 16 verse 5 says, "Everyone that is proud in heart is something detestable to God. Be assured that he will not go unpunished." So we obviously, with the world we're living in right now, everyone is very prideful. Every single person. And sometimes I am very prideful before I make these videos. Before I make these videos, I always try to talk myself out of it into not making this video. But at the end of the day, I have to realize that I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for God, and I'm doing this for God's people, to help people come closer to God. And that's why I do this, not because trust me, I don't want to be making these videos. I want to do this only for God, though. And I encourage you that if you know deep down that you are a very prideful person, and you live for yourself, and you try to you try to basically have everyone listen to you and have all eyes on you 24/7. Obviously in Proverbs 16 verse 5, it clearly says God will make those people go unpunished, whether that's here on earth while they're still living, or whether that's after you've passed away. And I encourage you today to humble yourselves before God, and take yourself before God's feet and say, "God, I am sorry for being this prideful person. Please forgive me." And before I make any of my videos, that's what I have to do. I have to go before God and say, "God, I'm sorry for being prideful. Please forgive me. I know this is not for me. This is for you." And I just pray for him and pray to him and pray for forgiveness. And yeah, I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I will see you guys in my next video.